also on our list. So yeah, so I've been just going to meetups and just trying to network with everyone.
Great to have you on, Vicky. Did I say your last name correctly?
Liu, that was pretty good.
Pretty good. That's what I strive for. At least pretty good. Evan, tell us a little bit about yourself. All right, George, take it away.
All right, George Roberts. I've been a single family landlord, helped launch a construction company here in Michigan. I've got multiple deals going on. I like the Sun Belt, joint ventures, syndication. I like to reposition properties. So I like it when there's a little bit of construction involved, makes things a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, it's fun to look at a project and go, what could we do with this? So I love those two, George. Welcome. Clay.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Happy New Year. My name is Clay Malcolm, and I'm here, I guess, for a couple of reasons. One is I'm a real estate investor, relatively small time, but kind of across the country. And I have a couple of properties that I'm probably going to sell in Denver in the not too distant future. So I'm looking at all kinds of opportunities to redeploy that money. And I'm also a self-directed IRA and solo 401k professional and educator. So if anybody needs or wants information about that type of investment strategy, I'm happy to help there too.
Welcome back, Clay. Clay gives out really good information. So we're glad to have him as a part of our group. All right, Jennifer, tell us some stuff about you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Mccracken, originally from Chicago. I'm currently in Michigan, trying to get down to Tennessee, which is why I thought I'd start networking this way. I have always owned and rehabbed my own homes. I had a small single family portfolio. I started flipping 3-unit buildings, which made a lot more sense than doing single family. I have a marketing background, and I used to work for guys in the multifamily housing space. So I understand more than I probably give myself credit for. And yet I also recognize by being in these groups, I got a lot more to learn. So I am trying to get down to the Tennessee area. That is my end goal. I was in North Carolina last year, so I kind of wouldn't mind being down in Tennessee East area along the Carolinas.
That's a beautiful area, Jennifer.
Yeah.
That's I like that area. All right, Kevin, tell us some stuff about yourself.
Okay, so I'm Kevin. I'm in Trinidad and Tobago, and I am investing in the Georgia market and in and around those areas. So I do look at some properties in Alabama, Tennessee as well. I do have duplexes in Georgia, and I'm trying to get into the commercial multifamily space. And I was invited by Tommy, and I am an accountant by profession, so I try to, get involved in any sort of underwriting or deal analysis stuff anywhere, everywhere, I guess. So yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. I think you've driven the furthest to be at this meetup. I think we're going to give you the mileage award. All right, Tim, tell us about yourself.
Hello, I'm Tim Fergestad. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. I first of all, let me just say thanks for putting this on. There's a lot of great people here. I tried to get on here a couple other times before, and again today. I have to leave early. Got to pick up my oldest, but I'm excited to see Ray here. That's cool. I'm going to miss, I guess, much of what you're going to say, but he's a good friend. He'll tell me about it more. Anyway, and like some of you, I've done single family and sort of organically transitioned to multifamily. I'm trying to sell my single families now. I did get a deal up by Talbot's Corner there in Nashville a few months ago. So I like the market, and I wanted to learn more and meet some of the local people.
Cool. Welcome, Tim. Let's try Evan again. And while Evan's logging on to tell us about himself, if you haven't done so already, if you would go ahead and put your contact info in the chat, and I'll send those out, as well as a recording of this video to you, email and cell phone, if you would. Evan, are you here?
Hi, I'm sorry. I was driving before, so I apologize. Hi, my name is Evan. I'm looking to invest in commercial real estate, and I'm here to learn like everyone else. So.
Great, Evan. Glad you're here. Please drive first and then listen and pay attention second. Let's stay safe. That'd be great. Thanks for coming on. Mark, tell us about yourself. All right, we see you, but we don't hear you, Mark. Take yourself off of mute. Getting close. I can feel it. It goes on or off mute and then on mute again real quick. Let me see if I can, wonder if I can take you off mute. Nope. I can ask you to unmute. That's about all I can do. We have aviancapgroup.com. Tell us your actual name and where you're from.
Absolutely. Yeah, my name is Moses Lucero. I'm residing in Las Vegas, Nevada, temporarily. I'm with Aviana Cap Group. My business, along with my business partner, who's in Denton, Texas. My little bit of my background is I'm a mortgage loan originator for single family. I came from a single family investment background. I was an acquisitions analyst for a small investment firm here in Las Vegas for about 2 years. So that's how I kind of got my feet wet with commercial multifamily. I created Aviana Cap Group with my business partner about almost 10 months ago. Currently, we have 275 units under management in Warner Robins, Georgia, and we set to close on another 328 units in the Southwest Atlanta region in the next couple of weeks. That's kind of where we're at and kind of where we're headed.
Awesome. Welcome. Sounds good. All right, Mark, we're going to swing it back to you.
All right. Can you hear me?
Outstanding. That's great.
All right. Yeah, I had to go back to my settings for some ungodly reason. So my name is Mark Bornstein. I live in Lafayette, Louisiana, and I'm originally from Pennsylvania, but I was stationed down here in the military. I'm an Iraq war vet. And I guess I've been flipping properties on and off for about 20 years. Got serious about it 6 years ago when my own house flooded in Baton Rouge and we had to rebuild it. So we're up to about 15 rental properties. I have a couple of flips going in Lafayette, and it's a growing area, so it works. A lot of flexibility. I'm watching my 1-year-old while I talk to you. So I do most of the repairs, either me and like 2 or 3 other guys. So I'm heavily involved. My wife does the actual negotiating and hammering.
Awesome,
So,
Mark. Glad you're here. Thank you for your service.
Sure.
Vlad, tell us some stuff about you. Some about yourself. Tell us about yourself. Something like that. All right, Vlad might be driving. Tommy, why don't you take it next?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Tommy Brant here. I'm co-host of this lovely meetup. Thanks, Josh, for wrangling everyone together, and I'm just shouting from the rooftops, trying to bring everyone in. So it's been a fun time. So I've been in the national market for about 12 years. Going on 13. I've got 3 single families. I'm invested in 132 units in Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm trying to close on a vacation rental in Florida right now. So a little bit of everything, master of none. So looking forward to hearing what Ray's got to share with us today. And I've put together a little bit of a resource kit in case anyone is trying to get, better and sharper at underwriting or different ways to add value. I think what we're finding nowadays that we're having to pencil in just about anything and everything on our value add into our underwriting strategy, and much less and less can be left as unquantifiable gravy on top. So Yeah, with that, I'll give the mic to Josh or Ray here.
Thanks, Tommy. I appreciate you helping me advertise this and bring Ray on. I'll tell you a little bit about me. I started this meetup in March of 2013. That's way too far. 2018. We'll do that one. Yeah, March of 2018. We're up to, I think, over 700 members now. I've been actively looking for real estate since 2017, and I decided to skip the single family brain damage. I just didn't feel like that was where I wanted to be. So I went straight to commercial multifamily, partnered up with Michael Blanc with his programs. I think I did something wrong. No, I hit the wrong button. Anyway, bought a property in 2018, 40 units in Birmingham, partnered with Michael on that. That was a syndication. That was an education experience in and of itself. In 2019, partnered with someone to buy a property in outside of the Chattanooga area. That property is absolutely blowing the doors off of our projections. Average rents were $450 in 2019. Today, we are approaching $800 on average rent. Refinanced all the money back out. We got free returns coming down the pike. This is the property that the gurus, and I'm going to put in air quotes, the gurus write all their books about. So I wish I could find about 10 more of these things. It's been a fantastic property. I've been a coach or a mentor helping person and underwriting helping person for Michael Blanc. I don't know if I have a specific title or anything, but with underwriting, been pretty good at his SDA, syndicated deal analyzer, basically a big glorified Excel spreadsheet. And I'm looking to sharpen my skills as well. COVID kind of set us all on our hind ends, and we didn't know how to respond to it. And even now it's still tricky, but I'm finding it now in 2022 that it's time to motivate and get back going again. Lost a lot of good momentum from 2019. So that's what my goal for 2022 is, to get ramped back up. So Ray, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are? You've mentioned you're from Phoenix. Tell us how you got into real estate. Tell us why underwriting is your secret superpower, or maybe not so secret. And then just let's dive right into your presentation.
Very good. Should I throw my slides up there? Is that
Yeah, go ahead and do that, Ray. I think that'd be great. Before you start, if you joined late, please put your name and your email and your phone number, a cell number, in the chat, and I'm going to send that out to everyone at the close of this presentation, along with a copy of the video, so that you can go back and check out what Ray's been telling us or showing us how to do, some tips and techniques and that sort of thing. Plus, you'll have all the information for all the people on here. And if somebody is in a market that you're interested in, I'm in Nashville here, and if you're interested in Nashville, there's several of us on the video here. So feel free to reach out to people, and that's kind of the whole point of this thing, along with the education. So take it away, Ray.
Thank you so much, Josh. And first, before I say anything else, I do need to say thank you, Josh and Tommy, for having me here at your group. I'm grateful for that. I'm also grateful that so many of us have gotten accustomed to Zoom. If there's a blessing that came out of COVID, it's that we're all more connected with each other worldwide. We're all across the US, and we're in Trinidad and Tobago with Kevin. So we've become a smaller planet because of that. And I'm grateful that you're part of that, Josh and Tommy. Thank you for that. For today's presentation, I know from speaking to Josh and Tommy earlier, we have a wide range of people. We have several people who have achieved excellence in another profession and they're new to multifamily. We have others who are seasoned multifamily investors. So what I'm going to share with you today, I'm going to try to appeal to this wide range. It's a challenging task. It's kind of like being a stand-up comedian, telling jokes for your buddies from high school and your grandmother in the same audience. And that's not, it's a challenging task. So we're gonna figure out how to do it together, and with the discussion towards the end, we'll do that. This is my agenda. I like icebergs. We're gonna talk about that's the tip of the iceberg that's above the surface. But I'd also like to, given all of the expertise we have on this call, I'd like to drill down into why and how as well. And Josh and Tommy said that as long as I'm under 3 hours, we're good. So I'll definitely stay under 3 hours. Okay, that was one of those grandmother jokes. Did it work? I don't know. All right, no, we're going to spend about 20 or 30 minutes on the slides, somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes on the slides, and then 15 minutes Q&A or however long you want to spend. All right, this is me. My name is Ray Hightower. I run a company called Bridgetown Partners in Phoenix, Arizona. I also run a podcast called Biz Day Global in Arizona. My background, I'm a tech company founder. I started and ran a technology company for 21 years, built it from scratch, sold it after 21 years, and then entered multifamily. Currently, I have about 400 doors, just over 400 doors. That's combined LP and GP, and you can contact me at RayHightower.com. There's also a group of us who have a mastermind based in Arizona called azmm.org. I'll talk about that towards the end of the talk. So here we go. Let's start off. What is underwriting? And in my opinion, this is the most important question in underwriting. And that question is, how do I take this piece of real estate and turn it into a business that makes money? That's the driving question behind underwriting across the board. And then we're doing this while we're satisfying multiple stakeholders. We're satisfying a buyer, a seller, investors, and then there's more. There's the syndicator. That's us if we're doing a syndication or a JV. There's the tax collector, inspectors, residents, vendors, neighbors. There are all these stakeholders that we have to satisfy while we are turning this piece of real estate into a business that makes money. We're combining budgeting and business planning, and at the same time, we're predicting the future, and we're making decisions about what we're going to do to drive that future. We use models to do this, and just listening to Josh at the end, I didn't know that you were as immersed into Michael Blank's world as you are. I think he's created an awesome underwriting model. It's so good to hear that you've immersed yourself into that. And I'm sure there's other people who are deep into that. Tim Fergustad on the call, we know each other in Arizona, and I don't remember which model he gets into, but I know that this is certainly one that he's explored. So two models that I'll mention just for this talk are the one by Robert Beardsley and the one by Michael Blank. It seems that there are as many underwriting models as there are underwriters or syndicators, right? The reason I highlight these two is because there are books that accompany them. And I like the books because in both cases, they're drilling down into the why behind their respective models. In the case of Rob Beardsley, one of the things I like about his in particular is that he goes through what he calls sensitivity analysis, where you're looking at what happens to your whole model if cap rates suddenly go up by a point, or what happens if interest rates go up by a point or down by a point. How does that affect the return on investment that you're delivering to your investors and to yourself? And of course, there are models by Vertical Street Ventures. I'm very involved with a syndication firm here in Arizona called Vertical Street Ventures. There's Rod Cleef with his Warrior program, Brad Simrock, Dave Tupin, David Lindahl. There are a lot of models out there, but these are just two that I choose to highlight, and you may choose a different one. Which one is best? I believe that it's the one that gives you answers that you understand, because it doesn't work to use a model with many layers of spreadsheets and come up with an answer about whether or not you're going to move upon a property that we don't understand. So choose one that you're comfortable with, and you might start with the ones that have books that accompany them. I'd encourage you to read both of these books in your underwriting quest if you haven't read them already. So how long does it take to underwrite a deal? Anywhere from 10 minutes to 10 hours or more. It depends. One of the things I like about Michael Blank's model is that he has built into it a 10-minute underwriting page where you can go in and make at least a preliminary decision about a deal within 10 minutes. I like that That page has pros and cons, though. It has pluses and minuses. He assumes a 50% expense ratio, which may or may not be true, depending on what part of the country you're in and depending on what the macroeconomic market is like. But if you understand his model well enough, you can tweak that 10-minute offering page to suit your market and to suit the deals that you're going after. Here's Rob Beardsley's model. Here, I've pulled it into Google Sheets. There's some people who like Excel. I like Google Sheets personally, and we'll talk about tools as we go throughout the presentation. I like Google Sheets because I like to be able to share whatever model I'm working on or whatever numbers I'm working on with other people. It's important to me. How do I say this? It's like when you're writing a term paper back in school, it's always helpful to have someone proofread your work. I personally have never been effective at proofreading my own work successfully. I proofread it and then I'll hand it in and it turns out that I misspelled words like the. I spell it TEH instead of THE or something like that, even with spell check. So there you go. So I think it's helpful to use a tool that allows you to share with other people. I believe that Microsoft has a way for you to share their spreadsheets with other people. I don't know if it's as smooth as Google's tool, but the one that I use is Google's tool. So here's Rob Beardsley's model in the Google Sheets tool. And then, of course, here is Michael Blank's model pulled in to Google Sheets as well. Once upon a time, Michael recommended that you not use his tool with Google Sheets, but the latest version of SD, I believe it's 2.9. And Josh might know that. Yeah, I think 2.9 does allow you to use Google Sheets.
Yeah, that's it's a lot more robust, Ray. You're exactly right.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Good. All right. So how we're below the surface of the water in the lower part of the iceberg right now, right? And in answering the question how, I prefer to, rather than make something up, I'll go through a real world example. This is a deal that my partners and I just closed on in November of last year. So at the end of last year, less than 60 days ago, 28 unit deal in Phoenix, Arizona, value add property. And here's high level overview of what we have here. That's the address, average unit size, 17 2-bedroom units, 10 1-bedroom units, and 1 studio. Individually metered electricals. These are all things that are relevant when we're doing our underwriting. And you can see our acquisition price was $171,000 per unit. So we drilled down, we went through our underwriting procedure, we shared our data with each other. We happened to use the model, the Vertical Street Ventures model, because they were my senior GPs on this deal and they have a proprietary model. But if you're interested in the numbers on this deal, I did pull those numbers into a Rob Beardsley sheet, so we can look at those also. So we went through our underwriting, we went through our due diligence, walked every unit, and this is the deal summary that we came up with. And if you would like to know how we arrived at this in detail, this link, this YouTube link, I could probably throw that in the chat. If you remind me at the end of this, I'll throw that link in the chat window. That is a 35-minute video where you'll see my partners and me going through how we arrived at this deal summary that you see in front of you. But the bottom line is, if someone puts 100 grand into this deal, they come out with a 2x equity multiplier, 16% IRR, 80% bonus depreciation, and an 8% preferred return. So that's the summary, and you'll find out how that works there. And if you want to go through that underwriting sheet, we can go through that as well. So what is the process that we go through while we're underwriting? Well, one of the first things that we do is we normalize the income. And normalizing income, depending on the lender that you go through, the lender that we worked with wanted us to take the last 3 months of income and multiply that by 4 to annualize it, because they just wanted to have a snapshot of what the property is doing right now. And I found that, at least certainly from listening to others who've spent more time in multifamily that I have, that especially during COVID, people wanted to see and hear. When I say people, I mean really bankers and lenders wanted to see and hear, what is the condition of the property right now? What is the status of the property right now? So they want to look at a T3, the trailing 3 months, annualize that and use that in our underwriting model. Normalizing expenses, there are a couple of questions that we ask ourselves. We look at it at T12 expenses. I do know of cases where people have looked at a T24 or T36, but T12 has been typical in the deals that I'm working on. And when we're going through the expenses, we're asking ourselves a couple of key questions. Which expenses make sense? Which items are likely to increase and by how much? For example, property taxes. Depending on where you are, depending on what part of the country you're in, taxes may go through the roof at acquisition, or in Arizona, they may be capped at 5% upon acquisition. So it depends. So you want to ask yourself that question about each item as you go through your spreadsheet. A friend of mine in the multifamily business, Troy Treecross, put together this spreadsheet. Everything here is small, so I'll zoom in here. What he did is he looked at the normalization techniques or normalization standards put out there by several different sources out there. And I could share this with you or put you in touch with Troy. Some of you may actually know Troy, but this is one of the methods that he uses. This is one of the methods that he uses when he's underwriting to figure out what numbers he's going to use when he's going through and normalizing his expenses. Some people use other standards. It depends on what part of the country you're in and what market you're in as to what standard you'd use. And sometimes, I find that when I put together an underwriting spreadsheet, it's helpful if I run it by a property management firm, the property management firm that I'm working with on my most current deal, for example, to see if it makes sense, to see if things have changed, to see if insurance rates have changed or anything like that. And I would run it by an insurance agent as well, or an insurance broker as well. We also, in our underwriting, need to keep the bank happy. And keeping the bank happy means that we have to we have to achieve a minimum debt service coverage ratio or greater, and achieve the loan to value ratio that they want, and to have reserves set aside. COVID reserves were much higher. In some cases, we saw 12-month reserves. Some of those have gone away, but banks still want reserves of some form, especially if you're doing value add. Like the deal that we just closed on, that is a value add deal where we are moving tenants out so we can improve the units and bump the rents. And so since there's no guarantee, we are reasonably sure that we'll get the rents that we want because we were very thorough in doing our rent surveys and figuring out what's going on in the market. But since there's no guarantee of that, the bank wanted a reserve, a lump sum of money that we raised as part of our syndication in order to satisfy that. Let's talk about conservative versus aggressive underwriting. In fact, during our Q&A, I hope that we can get into that with each other, because I'm very interested in hearing how conservative versus aggressive underwriting is working for you in Tennessee versus what I'm seeing here in Arizona. Bottom line is this: all of us can be very conservative underwriters, but if we're too conservative, we'll never do a deal. Likewise, if we're too aggressive, we might get the deal, end up upside down, and that's not a pretty place to be in any business. It's just not pleasant to be. So I'd be interested in having a discussion with all of you on this call about what your philosophy is behind that. Let's talk about capital expenditures, because since this is a value add deal, that's the deal we just closed in Phoenix. Since it's a value add deal, there's a sizable CapEx of $535,000 is what we're putting into that, 17 grand a unit. Like, for example, one example of CapEx, where are we? We can't even tell what property that is. We had to wipe out all that foliage. And so I went by on the day that the landscapers were wiping that out. There it is. We can tell we're at Willetta Apartments. And as you can see, there's a bunch of stuff that we're doing there. There's improvements in terms of electrical, plumbing, painting, making the place look more appealing to prospective tenants so that they want to rent the property. One big improvement that we're making involves Zinsco panels. And I don't know if this is only an Arizona thing or not, but these panels, our insurance company, first of all, there were some insurance companies that did not want to do business with us because we have Zinsco electrical panels installed in our units. Not only is it an insurance issue, but the bigger problem is these are a fire hazard. Now, this property was built in 1960. Why the panels have not been replaced since 1960, I don't know, but we're going through unit by unit and replacing them. Two big benefits we get out of these. One, all of a sudden the units become much safer for our residents. We want to take care of our residents. If they're paying us money in rent, we want to give them a safe and a nice place to live. And then two, our insurance bill is going to go down by a good 30+% per year. So that's one of the things that we have on our CapEx. Another thing we learned about is something called Orangeburg Pipe. I had never heard the word Orangeburg until the day we did due diligence on this property. Essentially, Orangeburg Pipe is named for a town in New York, Orangeburg, New York, that I had never heard of. And this is a pipe that is very inexpensive to create. They started creating it in the late 1800s. It's made of wood pulp and tar. They combine wood pulp and tar, and it's used for sewer lines, but it doesn't last very long. It's not very sturdy. And so I think that when they put it in, they figured, oh, it'll last for 50 years. Who cares about it? What happens 50 years from now? But we do, because here we are. So there's some of those that we're going to be replacing as well. So wrapping up, we're coming to the end of the slides right here. This number one slide I'd like to leave you with in our closing is this, our underwriting question. The most important question, in my opinion, revolving around underwriting is this: how do we take this piece of real estate and turn it into a business that makes money? Those are my thoughts about underwriting. Thank you for listening. My name is Ray Hightower. And by the way, if you're interested in our Arizona Mastermind group, go to azmm.org and you'll be right on the pathway to get connected with us there. So thank you for listening. Any questions?
Great information, Ray. You just crammed that 3-hour presentation into about 30 minutes, and that's impressive. That's hard to do.
Thank you.
I had not heard of Orangeburg pipes, although I know what they are. I didn't know they had a name. I didn't know what the name was, but
okay.
When you talk about, go back a slide.
Yes.
To your question, how do I take this piece of real estate and turn it into a business that makes money? Not every CapEx decision will have a return on investment that you can quantify. Replacing those Orangeburg pipes is not going to raise rents.
Right.
But just like replacing your panels, that is something, although panels with the insurance reduction, that's fantastic. But those are things that are needed. You may not be able to quantify that measurement now, but when you go to sell, those are the things after you take your pictures and show them, here's what we did. That's what you present to a future buyer. And that is how you have taken that real estate and you've turned it into something that's going to make you money. It may not be cash flow today, but it will be appreciation tomorrow. So those are fantastic things. I only had a thought and a question.
Yes.
What was your cost on replacing those Zinsco panels?
We are paying $1,250 per unit, $1,250 per unit for those.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Have you had experience with those? Have you run into?
We've not. Zinsco, we don't see too many of those down here. What we do kind of look for, it's similar, is having aluminum wiring.
Oh yes.
So
that's another issue. Yes. We were fortunate we didn't have aluminum wiring here, but we looked for that. Our electricians looked for that.
Yeah, and that's something that I think a lot of people have been kind of trained to look for. Zinsco is something that we here in the Southeast don't really run into much. And aluminum wiring, I don't see it much in Tennessee. I've got a friend of mine who used to have a property in Pensacola, Florida, and they had to do the pigtail thing throughout the whole project, 300 something units, just an unreal number of dollars that you had to spend. But to your point, insurance companies wouldn't touch the property. He had to find a very special carrier that charged them a arm and a leg and maybe future arms and legs, or I don't know. It was ridiculous, but you're right. Those things, again, you're not going to see that on the P&L as where am I going to make my money? But that insurance will help. The other thing that I had, you talked about expenses, in the 10-minute offer that Michael does, it does require you to know what your expenses are. What I would say to that for anybody who wants to get into this business is you need to be a local ninja on expenses. And that simply means You've got to know your local expenses inside and out, to the point to where you can look at a property and go, okay, that is in Nashville. That's going to cost me about $4,300 a door on expenses. And
Yes.
I can take that number and plug it in instead of trying to do a percentage of income, which is the lazy way, in my opinion.
Mhm.
I'm going to be a little more, I have to do a little bit more math, but I'm going to be a little more accurate on my underwriting.
Yes. And you know what? You'll win more deals that way, and you'll avoid deals that you shouldn't do that way. So yeah.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. I think those were the two comments and questions that I had. Tommy, did you come up with anything to grill Ray with?
I did. Just a couple of things, but I like that we're on this slide that has the main question here, right? Because one way that I would maybe rephrase it or re-ask it or reposition it is, you know, what's the highest and best use of this property or this land or this building? I think you'll come to the same answer, right? But that's just something else to think about too,
Yeah.
right? Maybe can we build another fourplex on this land, or can we reposition the garages as paid storage? You know, and that's as far as the property level goes. But you did talk a lot about, at least you wanted to revisit aggressive versus conservative underwriting.
Yes. Yeah. I'd like to hear from the Tennessee perspective there. Yes.
For sure. And I'll share my personal, and then I encourage anyone to chime in and kind of, you know, share what they're doing. But, you know, there's some, at least for expense ratios and stuff like that, if we're just doing a quick and dirty and we don't have a T12, we can generally take a 40 to 45% expense ratio of the gross income to see if it's, you know, just what is a general NOI, what's the order of magnitude, does it make sense? And as far as I guess the underwriting, that really goes back to the highest and best use of your property. And that really goes back to value add. And that really goes back to your business plan. So what all can you add value on? I think we're having to get very, very creative, right? You know, I think the easiest and most low hanging fruit for a lot of properties is implementing pet rents or implementing some RUB systems for utility payback. But I think people are having to get more competitive and more creative in adding like trash valet services, in which case you would have to have very specific property managers that agree to do something like that, or technology packages. Maybe you can advertise internet day one, you know, move and ready internet, and you're just kind of subcontracting the internet there and taking a little bit of the cream off the top. But, you know, how do you implement that in your underwriting? Those are all like really hard, I think, decisions that is going to differentiate you from other people that are just stopping at taking 40 to 45% expense ratios and seeing if it makes work. The last question I'll leave everyone with is, can all of these creative ways to add value on a business, you know, that adds up from the client's perspective, from the tenant's perspective? Can the market withstand, you know, all those little fees and things? So things to be aware of.
Yeah, that gets back to really knowing your market intimately. Josh brought up the point of knowing your market expenses intimately, and you're talking really knowing your market income intimately. So yeah, both sides that we need for that. So, yep.
Historically, I have been overly conservative in my underwriting, and I've missed out on many properties looking back that actually turned into not only home runs, but grand slams. And that's one of the things that I've got to revisit in 2022. You know, as we look at our properties overpriced, there's a lot of things to kind of take that into consideration. In 2020, there was a number of institutional investors who were in the office space or in the hospitality space who pivoted to multifamily. And anytime you have more demand for a product that is static in the number, which means we didn't make that many more units in 2020, but the demand for owning those units went up even further, then cap rate compression is going to happen. And that's what we've been seeing. And the old rule of 1%, like we see in the single family space, you know, you can modify that to the multifamily space. That doesn't work anymore. And to Tommy's point, it's time to sharpen the pencil and just take these little incremental increases and see if we can see what we can do on those things. And so that's my challenge to myself in 2022 is, will this continue as I don't know if you guys heard, what kind of housing shortage the nation is facing. I've heard anywhere from 1 million to 1.5 million units shy of what we need today. And then going forward over the next 10 years, it's not going to get better. The flip side of that coin, though, Ray, and is something that I think we all will have to face at some point, is where will C-class tenants and to some point B-class tenants, where is their tipping point? How far can we go with rents? Rent, I was at a mastermind or a meeting yesterday, and it was mostly a bunch of property managers. And they asked this question, who determines rent? And the answer is the market determines rent. The property manager doesn't say rent's going to be $900 a door. The tenant's not going to say rent's $500 a door. The market's going to say $1,200 a door. And so a good property manager is going to go get that money for his or her property owner. Where is that tipping point? Have we hit that tipping point? What are we going to have to do to modify these percentage of income kind of models that we've always heard of? 3 times, rent shouldn't be no more than 3 or 4 times income and that sort of thing. I don't see how income has a chance to even catch up or keep pace with rental income. What's going to happen? And that's, as we look in the future, that's kind of what we have to do. If I'm going to go in and say, okay, this property looks fantastic. Last year, there was an 8% rent increase. The year before, there was a 6%. This year, we're going to hit 11%. And those are numbers in Nashville right now. In some places, it's 30%. In Murfreesboro, which is where I live, there are apartment communities that are hitting 30% rent increase over year. That is unsustainable. I need to ask this question. How do I take this and turn it into a business that makes money? I need to look at that 5 to 10 years down the road.
Yeah. 30% year over year. That is, I thought Phoenix was high at 22%. We said, like, right when we closed this deal, we were at 22% year over year in Phoenix.
Yeah. Now that's not a market number. Our market number is probably closer to 20. This particular property was 30%. It was it was under rented, but
I see. Okay.
But anyway, the issue is still the same. 20% is still mind blowing.
Right. I think the important thing is we need to make sure that we figure out how to add value. Something Tommy said was internet day one. I think that's adding value. I think that putting solar panels on a property where utilities are included, where electricity is included, that's adding value also, because you're in a position where the tenants theoretically would not have to pay as much to the power company, would not have to pay the power company at all. And so they're getting it all as part of their rent. So there's adding value. There's ways to do. Maybe we just have to get a much more creative. I think that's it, Yeah, we just have to get really creative. I don't want to suck up all the air. Who else has?
That's right. I've talked way too much. Who else has any questions for Ray?
Ray, thank you that you had in your bio, you were creating software. I know you had created a tech company, but you're creating software for the commercial real estate industry. I guess, is that still actively happening? I'm just more curious.
Yeah, that is something right now, the stage that I'm in terms of software creation, in any good software, you have to have at least one subject matter expert or a group of subject matter experts, people who understand the space that you're attacking really well, so that when you're designing the software, it's reasonable and it's intuitive and it's solving a real problem. Everything that I'm doing right now is focused on commercial real estate as a syndicator and an operator myself. So we're not building the software yet. We're identifying some problems. I will say this, I do see some spaces and I see some gaps where we can write some software that will solve some problems and eliminate some pain. So I see some gaps. And I'm still at the point where I'm immersing myself in the industry, gathering data, and getting to the point where we can put something out. So that's a very long answer. That's a very long way of saying it's unannounced and I'm not answering your question.
You danced around it really well, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, he had
Well,
his tap dance shoes on for sure.
Cool. Yeah, best of luck on that front.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just conversations like this are good too, because we can hear about where the pain is and what needs to be addressed. Is there something that we can do that can add value for our residents so that when they're paying more in rent, they're happy? Well, nobody's really happy to pay rent, but happy to do it because they're getting something back of value. So those are the kinds of things we look at.
For sure.
Ray, would you go ahead and drop that YouTube link?
Oh, yes. Let
in
me
the
throw
chat.
that.
Yeah, somebody requested that. That reminded me.
Let me go ahead and do that.
Well, while Ray does that, I'm going to engage the audience a little bit here. Kevin, can I pick on you, buddy? So I know you've been feverishly underwriting deals in Georgia, and I'd love to get your opinion on it. I guess has your mindset or your strategies had to change within the past year that you've been underwriting stuff, or are you changing anything for 2022?
Yeah, so I am changing a little bit. So as you mentioned before, I was underwriting very conservatively. So I wasn't able to capitalize on any opportunities that were coming my way because of that. And I decided to change it a little bit because it's more than, underwriting is more than just the numbers. It involves the market as well and understanding demand, understanding the opportunities specific to that location as well. So it leads to you definitely understanding the property that you're dealing with, the location that you're dealing with, and being able to project as best as possible what could happen in the future. So, for example, with the rents, you're going to understand the situation that you're involved in. If it is a property that is vacant or it is way under rented, then you know that your projections for the first 3 years going to show high escalation rates versus you just putting in a standard, I don't know, 3% or 4% as the case may be. So I started tweaking individual aspects of the numbers from the rent to the expenses, as well as looking to do capital expenditures that would generate some sort of future value and probably delay certain capital expenditures that may not bring immediate value. So, those types of things I was changing.
Very cool. Yeah, that's interesting. I've been trying to ask myself is like, I get that I'm being conservative on a couple points, but I don't think I was doing full diligence to understand like, what is my best case scenario? If everything really came together, what is my highest purchase price, right? I think I was still coming up with a purchase range and just say, hey, I'm conservative in these 5 places. Here's my range, instead of knowing if I wasn't conservative and I was 100% aggressive, like what is my best number? And then let me come down from there and like not even come close to touching that. But I think the high growth environment, I think that'll be transitory. I'd be interested to see where we're, return to some sense of normalcy. But that's going to depend on a couple of things like, labor shortages and commodities and supply chain and stuff like that before that even comes close. But it's pretty, barriers to home ownership, right? All of that's kind of affecting demand for rents there. But thanks for the share, Kevin. So Jennifer, can I pick on you? And Jennifer, I don't know if you're actively underwriting, but I know that you were looking at Tennessee. But if you are underwriting, I'd be curious to know what are you changing this year. But if you're not underwriting and you're just networking for with other underwriters, I'd love to know which parts of Tennessee you're looking at. Are you looking at Chattanooga, Knoxville, Pigeon Forge?
I
you
was
know?
looking along Johnson City because I like how
Cool.
it borders the Carolinas, and I know that those are some hot markets over there. So if I could be boots on the ground walking and drive that way or whatever to help others, or even invest for myself, that I was just trying to land in that area. But I shouldn't say very familiar. I'm familiar with the Chattanooga area because we've always traveled down there. So
Cool. Yeah, the Tri-Cities is really nice too, for sure. Yeah, Jefferson City. Do you know Greg Scully and Darren Light?
yes, I'm
Cool.
hoping to come down maybe in the spring and do a meetup with everyone, or at least give that an opportunity. So I have not underwritten anything. That's kind of what I'm realizing I need to learn a little bit better. I mean, I get the numbers that you need to show, it makes sense, but this is definitely a larger scope on things. So that was my reasoning for joining these groups, is to learn that better.
Very cool.
Early in the
Awesome.
process on that, Jennifer, don't let the fact that underwriting is not a superpower yet stop you, because one of the pillars of being a successful real estate investor is networking. And I was going to suggest Kim and Greg Scully as well over in East Tennessee. They're good people. Darren Light's over there. He's a good guy. A lot of good people over in East Tennessee. But if you partner with people, partner with your weaknesses and bring your strength. You don't necessarily have to exercise the weak parts of your game in order to be successful. If underwriting is interesting to you and you want to go down that path, then certainly do that. But don't let that stop you from either making offers or continuing on your path. Ray said this several times, that if you get into an underwriting program that doesn't make sense to you and doesn't come up with numbers you understand and can explain, some people have said if you can't explain it to your 8-year-old little girl, then it might be too complicated, because a lot of investors aren't that sophisticated. Maybe find something that feels comfortable to you. I did Michael Blanc's because I didn't see anybody else's, and that was back in 2017 before everybody had underwriting. Now there's a ton of options. Some of them are plug and play. Some of them have pretty spreadsheet analysis. Some of them have a button you can print or push and get this nice little slick to print out, and all these things. And they're as complicated and as simple as you want them to be. So, just continue on with that journey. But that's just my 2 cents.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Josh, do you still use Michael Blanc's spreadsheet?
Absolutely, Scott. I haven't looked at anybody else's more than just to look at it. I've gotten used to it. I'm an old guy. It's hard to teach me new tricks. So once I learned his in 2017, this is his, let's see, version 2.9. I started at version 2.4 or so. And so they've progressively gotten a little more robust, if you will. But yeah, Scott, that's the one that I've done that I like. Some of the newer ones are a little more intuitive, a little easier to use out of the box, if you will. But I'm not going to change. I'm too set in my ways. My wife laments that to an extent, but she finds it comforting too. So there you go. Any other questions regarding underwriting? Underwriting is a fun topic to me.
Moses with his hand up.
Did you compare me to Moses?
So yeah, no, it's not so much a question, but it's kind of what you guys were speaking before on how we're adjusting underwriting going in the new year. Like you guys had mentioned too, it's also like you have to be a ninja in your sub-market wherever you're looking at. Really being a boots on the ground and knowing your competition too is kind of something that we've changed, because there's a lot of data out there too. Be careful what data you follow. We noticed like even sometimes CoStar reports are not even accurate. I mean, they're sometimes trailing 6 months. So that can really ruin your underwriting because you're not getting the correct information. The market's so fast right now. So we've kind of, instead of taking certain rent comps from CoStar and stuff like that, we've been looking at other pieces of information from places like that. So we've been looking at recently acquired properties that are closely nearby and seeing what they're doing and seeing what kind of rents they're trying to push to, really getting to know the area, the type of amenities, like the property we have under contract in Atlanta. We've noticed that we were able to get a premium just by adding security gates. because those type of properties nearby are putting security gates, gate access, and they're able to get those type of something small like that. But it's just the type of data you look into. Is you have to be very careful because it could be outdated. And so you got to kind of look between the lines and see what kind of data can you derive from these type of reports and really go off that. So, I mean, going in the new year, we've kind of pivoted on our strategies on how we're going to underwrite deals. And I don't know if this is a correct way to put it, but be responsibly aggressive. Because we've noticed we've lost a lot of deals by just looking outdated data because the market's moving way faster than it is. I don't think it's going to accelerate at the pace it is now, but it's still going to be continuing being faster. See, like someone mentioned earlier, a lot of institutional monies are coming into this space and they're really driving the market. So how can we follow that money closely behind it and be able to acquire properties at that level too? So it's just kind of something that we've kind of looked at and we pivoted to, especially in these large MSAs like Atlanta or Dallas or Phoenix. Then some of the secondary markets are becoming just as competitive.
Those are excellent points. If you have a Lexus budget, CoStar is fantastic. If you have a Pinto budget, try this little company called Zillow. Zillow, I've used it several times, and I like Zillow for several reasons. Number one, these are things for rent today, and I can draw a picture or a circle around where my property is. And apartment communities are facing competition from apartment communities, from townhouses, from condos, from houses. And if people in that area are renovating houses, that's usually a good indicator that that area is either going to change to go up or it's not going to go down any further. And so plus I can look at the pictures and say, okay, what are they doing? Are they putting stainless steel in? Are they putting white appliances back in? What are they doing? And so I think to your point, CoStar is very far and it's really not even that accurate. I was talking to a broker and he said he's got a really good relationship with a property manager, and he asked them specifically about CoStar. And she says, yeah, we get those phone calls. And he says, well, do you answer it correctly? Do you answer it? How do you do that? And she goes, we just tell them whatever just to get them off the phone. If you're relying on that information, that is not accurate information. While Zillow is not very sophisticated, it can at least get you closer than what CoStar is for a fraction of the price. So that's kind of what I do. But yeah, that's a great point.
To kind of add to that, it never hurts to call the competition. Like if you see a property within a 2-mile radius of your subject property, call them. If they see the renovations and the finishes you're trying to achieve, call them. See if they have if they're on a wait list. That helps you if you know if the occupancy level is high enough in that area, or call them to see what are the actual rents they are achieving. Calls a potential customer. That's kind of how we pivoted this year too, just calling the competition.
I'm old enough to be somebody's uncle, so I can go in and say, my niece is thinking about moving to this area. Do you allow little yappy dogs? Because she has one. Is this place safe? Am I gonna have to come out here with a baseball bat? Ask if I'm a big guy, I'm 6'3", I can ask those questions. Ladies, you can't play the big uncle like I can, but you can still ask those questions. You have a niece that is coming to that looking in the area, ask those hard questions and you'll get much better info either on the phone or in public or in person if you can, than you ever will on a website. Great.
So I have to agree with that. This is going to date myself, but 20 years ago when I used to work for these guys, they would literally travel about the country. They figure out they want to buy a property in Arizona. My boss would go network to every location that was a residential community similar to the one they wanted to build or buy. And he would come back with all of the brochures and I'd have to sit down, put them in a spreadsheet. And if there was missing information, I had to call the property and ask those types of questions. And it's nothing new. It just surprises me how people just don't do it. And of course, honestly, you get so much more out of a conversation, learning about other properties. You'd be surprised what people want to share. So I always encourage calling or visiting if you can.
Technology has made us lazy, hasn't it? That's exactly what it is. Plus, think about this. If you call a property and you get a property manager who's not very friendly, can that tell you anything about that property? That's going to tell us a lot about that property. So yeah, that's a great point, Jennifer. That's funny. Yeah, it still works. It's always going to work. Anybody else have anything to say? We're about out of time. A few of you have had to drop. It's okay. My internet looks like it's going in and out too, so that's kind of crazy. But anyway, it's 3:30. The kids are home, so all the devices are getting started. So anybody else? I'll give you one last chance to make a comment or ask a question. Going once.
I'll just say on behalf of George Roberts was on here earlier, but he hosts a networking hour every Wednesday over lunch hour. So if you're trying to network aggressively with people, that's another outlet. So check out his meetup if you're available at that time.
Cool.
Otherwise, big thank you to Ray for taking time out of his busy day and creating some good content for us. And 3 hours of content in 20 minutes is pretty amazing. So I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. You've got a great group of people here, just really smart and engaged people here. And I love that. I learn a lot when I'm with groups like this. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, Ray, we appreciate you. We appreciate you coming on. You're welcome here anytime. If you're ever in Nashville, be sure and look me and Tommy and let's see, Kevin dropped off. He's a Nashville local yokel now. We'll claim him. He's been here long enough. Okay. He still sounds like a Yankee to me, but that's okay. I like Tom. He's good. He's good people. But if you're ever in Nashville, please look us up. We'd love to have a coffee with you, grab dinner, anything like that. If you're ever in Nashville, I know I would love to go to Trinidad and Tobago, Kevin. So maybe I'll look you up.
Yes, let's do it.
I don't know if I can afford to bring the whole family. It may just be me. It's like, honey, this is a scouting project. I'm looking for our next property.
There you go.
Have to do it. Well, appreciate everybody being on. I'll send this out either tonight or tomorrow. You'll get everybody's contact information. You'll get a copy of the call. Please feel free to reach out to everybody on here. If you have questions, you may find a partner. Who knows? It's happened. Enjoy your day, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.